Maintenance fees, are they a sunken cost or are they worth the price? One of the biggest deterrents that we find for property purchasers when contemplating what type of property they want to purchase are maintenance fees. Oftentimes they say, hey, I want a freehold property. I don't want to buy a condo because I don't want these pesky fees. So if that's you, keep watching this video. I'm going to break down in this video how maintenance fees work, what's a fair price that you should pay for them. All right. How do you know if they're actually going to go up over time? And then lastly, how do you know what's actually included? What are the kind of expenses that you won't have to bear if you pay these maintenance fees? So before we get into it, for those of you that are new to the channel, my name is Emma Pace and I run a real estate team in Toronto called Monstera Real Estate. We specialize in helping millennials upsize from their first home to their forever home. So if you find any value in this video, please give me a like and a subscribe, and let's hop right into it. So maintenance fees, they get a bad rap, but are they really as bad as they seem? That's the question that we are going to figure out today. And just before we get there, if you're an investor and you're watching this video, there is a link in the description below for our weekly condo investment analysis list. So if you want professionally analyzed Toronto condo investments sent to your inbox every single week, we will send those out on Friday. So let's hop into how do maintenance fees really work. And let's look at an example. Now, this example isn't perfect, but it's going to paint the picture on how these fees actually work. So in this example, we've got $500 a month for maintenance fees, and I've shown here how the breakdown works. So we'll say about 50% of them, it's not usually quite 50%, but for the purposes of this example, it is. $250 of the $500 goes to operating expenses, so running the building on an annual basis. All right. And the second $250, the missing $250, goes into something called the reserve fund, which is a big savings account for the condo building, which we are also going to talk about in a second. So let's talk about this first portion of operating expenses here. All right. So this beautiful picture is something that I pulled from a previous status certificate that was provided to us. And if you don't know what a status certificate is, I do have another video in this condo playlist explaining exactly what that is, how to get it, what the costs are, all that kind of stuff. So go and check that out. So this has come from the budget document in the status certificate. And what this does is this breaks down all of the expenses that a building is typically going to incur on an annual basis to kind of keep the thing running. So what you'll see is they've got utilities, they've got contract services, general and administrative expenses, repairs and maintenance, recreation facilities. So that'll probably be the amenities, personnel costs, and then guest suites. So this will probably be for like security, housekeeping, all of that kind of stuff. All right. So it will then break down in further detail how much money is associated with each. And just so you guys know, because there's 3 columns here, one is typically the target budget, last year's budget, and then actual. I can't remember what column goes where, but those are what the 3 columns are for, just so you know. So what we can see here is the utilities, they've tallied up as being somewhere around $923,000 for the year. And you can see of the $923,000, $351 goes to hydro, $228 goes to gas, and $344 goes to water. We then go down and we say, okay, cool. What are all the contracts that we have? So we need someone to come take care of the HVAC. We need someone to do the landscaping. We've got the housekeeping. The guys are going to have to come in and fix the elevators. We need the window cleaners to come through. The garage guys, all of this kind of stuff. So here are all the costs for them to operate the building with the contracts that they've got. All right. And then you can see here are some of the improvements and expenditures that they have for just ongoing maintenance. And now we are going to look at the reserve fund side of things. So the formal definition, a reserve fund is a savings account or other liquid assets managed by a condominium, business, or individual for anticipated future expenditures, such as major repairs or improvements. So if I go back to this, you'll notice, they probably do have one of these major improvements factored in for this particular year from this, which is the HVAC system upgrade. And they may be doing some aesthetic improvements on the building, which is the other $105,000. It also looks like they probably have a big expense, the biggest expense this year, is for the garage. And so when we were talking about that $250 and the other $250, we need to make sure that not only are we running the building, but if things happen in the future, we want to make sure that we've got enough money in the savings account to take care of that so that they don't come back to you and ask you for some more money, which is called a special assessment. And what we are trying to avoid is any special assessments happening within your condo building, because then you have to reach into your pocket and pay the condo an additional fee on top of the maintenance fees. All right. That's a no-no. We're trying to avoid that at all costs. So a certain portion of your fees are going to go into this large savings account so that they can say, hey, we've got all of this money saved. And if the roof's got to go or the windows got to go, no big deal. Don't worry, guys. We've already planned for this. We already have the funds set aside. And it'll be, I believe, every 3 years that they're going to get a professional to come in and assess the reserve fund and do a reserve fund study to make sure that they've got, they know what repairs are coming up in the building, and to make sure that they've got the funds available for those expenses. And before you buy any condos, you're going to receive that document called the status certificate. I would not advise buying a condo without seeing this thing first, because all of these details are going to be included in that document, and your lawyer is going to let you know whether or not they give you the thumbs up to be able to move forward with this building, depending on if they've got enough cash to cover these expenses that could potentially come up in the future. All right. So one thing I wanted to show you guys, just to kind of give you a more accurate example, you'll see in this reserve fund study, which I was just talking about, at the present time, the average contribution per unit per month to the reserve fund was about $168 for this particular example, right? And then they'll show you, based on our proposed funding plan, the average increase in the contribution per unit per month will be $5 in 2020, $5.90 in 21, and $6 in 2022. Does that mean that your maintenance fees are automatically going up by that price? It doesn't necessarily mean that. It could be, hey, you're paying $500 a month, and right now it's 168. Up your 500 could stay the same, but we're going to change that proportionate share that goes from operating expenses to reserve fund. But again, talk to your lawyer about it, and look into this in more detail. It's actually pretty interesting when you get it, because ultimately when you're purchasing a condo, you're purchasing into a business, and you want to make sure that that business is operating at its highest and best possible use. All right. So how much do you need to set aside for utility costs, maintenance, and repairs if you're purchasing a traditional home? Because I think this is where maintenance fees get the bad rap. You have to reach into your pocket every single month and pay the property manager. And you go, wow, Emma, $500, $600 a month seems like a lot. But the question that I have for you is, when you take into consideration buying a detached house, how much do you think your utilities, your insurance, your gym membership on a monthly basis, potential landscaping if you decide to hire a landscaper? Well, I would probably guess that your utilities are going to be between $250 and $300 a month. Your insurance is probably going to be around $100 to $150 a month. Your gym membership's probably going to be $100 a month. Your landscaping is a question mark for whether or not you want to, outsource that. But there are additional costs that hasn't even taken into consideration you setting aside funds for if your roof comes up and you've got to repair it, right? So at the end of the day, I actually think the ownership costs from a condo perspective to a detached house on a monthly basis probably ends up shaking out to being about the same, but it hurts a lot more when it gets taken out as a lump sum versus they get taken out as smaller chunks on a monthly basis. The one benefit that I would have is with condos, you pay and somebody else deals with the organization and coordination. It could be a benefit. If you're not happy with the property management, could be a detriment. So that's an argument to be made. I'd love to hear your thoughts in the comments below on that. So let's talk about how much you should be paying for these things, right? So it's common, because I hear this all the time, I want a new condo because the maintenance fees are lower. So typically with new condos, the maintenance fees are typically going to start around 50 cents a foot. right? And so if you're buying something for, that's 800 square feet, to see a $400 a month maintenance fee wouldn't be out of the question. However, it's a good marketing tactic because it's very unusual for them to stay that low for a prolonged period of time. So if you're looking at buying a more mature building, so I would say a building that's over 5 years old, you should expect that the maintenance fees will be 65 to 85 cents per square foot. If you're paying in this is again just a rule of thumb. Make sure that you're getting the status certificate looked at by a lawyer before you go firm on any deals. But if you're paying in and around this rule of thumb price per square foot for maintenance fees, you're probably doing okay in Toronto. Now, let's wrap it up with what are you actually paying for? So I pulled this from a MLS listing today. The maintenance fees are $453 a month. You are getting your water included, your heat included, your central air included, your parking included, your building insurance, which we're going to talk about in a second, and then all of your common elements upkeep. So your hallway, the lobby, elevator, all that kind of stuff, right? So typically with a condo, you're paying for the entire building to be insured, but you are going to be responsible for your own particular unit. So the insurance is typically significantly lower on a monthly expense than what it would be for a freehold property. Right now, I think I pay somewhere between I think it's like $45 and $50 for the condos. So nothing too crazy. It's usually, similar to what you'd be paying as a tenant, contents insurance, and then some additional riders for water damage, that kind of thing. Talk to your insurance broker about that and get some more professional advice on the insurance side of things. Again, I don't sell insurance, but I've done this a couple of times. So your main building insurance is going to be included, but you are going to have some additional insurance costs. So you go on top of this 453, what additional costs you need to factor in? Well, hydro is not included. And if your building is newer than 2007, I believe it's actually government mandated that any buildings that are newer than 2007, you must pay your own hydro. So if you're looking at a building that's a little bit older, early 2000s, whatever, this may or may not be included, but it's usually reflective in the overall price there. All right. So hydro, probably budget somewhere between $50 and $100 a month, depending on the size. With this particular condo, I know the square footage was between 600 and 699. And so with those particular size of condos, I would usually suggest $60 to $70 a month on top of this is probably what it's going to cost you. But again, do your own research on that. So you're probably looking some additional expenses, but the bulk of your expenses are likely to be included in the maintenance fees. So we've talked about how they work, what you should pay for them, what is actually included, and are they typically overpriced or are they sunken costs? So at the end of the day, what I would encourage you to do is take into consideration the expenses that you would otherwise have if you purchased a freehold property instead of the condo. I think they get a bad rap because they are a big one-time expense on a monthly basis, but I think overall the disparity between home ownership and condo ownership is probably about the same. It's just how the money comes out of your bank account. So if you found any value in this video, please give me a thumbs up, a like, and a subscribe. And I look forward to seeing you guys in the next one.